Welcome to News Edge, your sharpest source for daily headlines and deep dives. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay ahead of the curve. The world today feels like it's teetering between the old order and a new, uncertain era. On one side, the US and its Western allies have shaped global rules for decades. On the other, rising powers like China are challenging those rules and shifting the balance. Two stories highlight this fragile moment: China's bold diplomatic move that left the EU looking weak, and a potential US policy shift that could shake the global economy: the weaponization of the dollar. These aren't isolated events, they're deeply connected, revealing a world in transition. The choices made in Beijing, Brussels, and Washington ripple into our daily lives, affecting prices, jobs, and national stability. It's easy to get lost in the details, but the big picture is clear. The future of global power is up for grabs. First, we'll examine how China outmaneuvered the EU on the world stage, exposing Europe's internal divisions. Then we'll turn to the US, where a controversial idea from Donald Trump, using the dollar as a political weapon, could threaten the very foundation of the global financial system. Experts warn that tampering with the world's reserve currency could backfire, risking economic chaos. These two developments are not just about politics, they're about the future we all share. Understanding them is crucial, because the world's balance is more fragile than it seems. Let's break down what happened, why it matters, and what it could mean for all of us. The story of our time is one of interconnected challenges and shifting power. These events offer a glimpse into the forces shaping our future. China recently hosted a major summit in Shanghai, spotlighting its leadership in green technology and infrastructure. Leaders from Asia, Africa, and South America attended, eager to join China's vision for the future. The EU, long touting its own Green Deal, was invited, but only as a secondary player. This forced Europe into a dilemma: accept a subordinate role or risk exclusion from a booming market. The EU's response was fractured. Some sent low-level delegates, others stayed away, exposing deep divisions. China's strategy worked. It highlighted Europe's lack of unity and positioned Beijing as the leader of the developing world. Germany's auto industry wants access to China, while France pushes back against unfair competition. The result? A public display of EU indecision, while China set the narrative. In a single event, years of EU efforts to project strength and unity were undermined. China's summit has forced the EU to rethink its entire approach to Beijing. The old idea of China as both partner and rival now tilts heavily toward rivalry. The US has long urged Europe to take a tougher stance on China, but the EU's fractured response shows the limits of transatlantic unity. Germany's economic interests don't always align with America's strategic goals, creating a wedge that benefits Beijing. For developing nations, China now looks like a more attractive partner, offering investment and technology with fewer strings attached. The summit was a masterclass in soft power, strengthening China's global relationships. This single move weakened the EU, complicated US foreign policy, and expanded China's influence. The world map is being redrawn, not with armies but with trade, infrastructure, and technology. China is proving itself a sophisticated political actor, shaping the international agenda. The balance of power is shifting, and the West is on the back foot. The EU's embarrassment signals a deeper transformation: the end of Western dominance and the rise of a multipolar world. Alliances are now fluid, with countries making pragmatic choices based on national interests, not old loyalties. China's flexible, partnership-driven diplomacy is perfectly suited for this era. By offering economic incentives, Beijing attracts a wide range of partners, without demanding political alignment. The US and its allies, built on shared values, now struggle to compete in a more transactional world. Even close partners like the EU may prioritize economic well-being over geopolitical alignment with Washington. The result is a complex, unpredictable landscape, no longer defined by clear lines but by overlapping interests and rivalries. Navigating this new reality requires agility and nuance. The challenge for the West is to adapt, build consensus, and project influence in a world where they're no longer the only major players. Amid these global shifts, a new risk emerges from within the US. Donald Trump has floated the idea of deliberately devaluing the dollar to boost American exports and jobs. This would be a dramatic break from decades of strong dollar policy, which has underpinned U.S. economic power and global stability. The dollar's status as the world's reserve currency gives America immense privilege. Countries everywhere hold dollars, trade in dollars, and invest in U.S. assets. Trump's proposal flips this logic, treating the dollar's strength as a liability rather than an asset. The idea: make U.S. goods cheaper abroad by weakening the dollar, fighting back against countries like China that manipulate their currencies. But this approach is fraught with risk. Devaluing your own currency is usually a sign of crisis, not strength. It signals a lack of confidence and could undermine trust in the dollar worldwide. If the U.S. abandons its role as the anchor of the global financial system, it becomes just another player in a currency war. The shockwaves from this proposal have rattled financial markets and alarmed economists. The risks of such a gamble could be catastrophic. The idea of weakening the dollar has reignited the global de-dollarization debate. Countries like China and Russia have long sought alternatives to the dollar, but progress has been slow, until now. If the U.S. signals it no longer values dollar stability, why should others trust it? Central banks could dump their dollar reserves, triggering a global sell-off and a crisis of confidence. The privilege of having the world's reserve currency is built on trust. Once lost, it's hard to regain. A flight from the dollar would be chaotic, not controlled, and could destabilize the entire global financial system. Other countries would likely retaliate by devaluing their own currencies, sparking a destructive race to the bottom. The result: massive instability, disrupted supply chains, and a global recession. Instead of helping American workers, such a policy could destroy jobs and worsen the very problems it aims to solve. The risks far outweigh any potential short-term gains. Collapse is a strong word, but a rapid global abandonment of the dollar could bring severe consequences. The most immediate impact: surging inflation. As imported goods become far more expensive for Americans, family budgets would be squeezed, and purchasing power would plummet. The U.S. government would face soaring borrowing costs as demand for Treasury bonds dries up. Higher interest rates would ripple through the economy. Mortgages, loans, and credit cards would all become more expensive. Businesses would struggle to invest, jobs would be lost, and the housing market could crash. The U.S. could enter a vicious cycle of high inflation, high interest rates, and high unemployment, stagflation on a massive scale. The stock market would likely plunge, retirement savings would be decimated, and America's global influence would erode. While society wouldn't collapse, the pain would be immense. A financial crisis deeper than 2008. The U.S. would lose its leadership role, all triggered by a single, avoidable policy decision. The real collapse would be of American prosperity and global standing. When America sneezes, the world catches a cold, but a dollar crisis would be more like global pneumonia. The dollar is the backbone of international trade and finance. A crisis would unleash chaos far beyond U.S. borders. Countries holding dollar reserves would see their savings evaporate, risking banking crises at home. Global trade would be thrown into disarray as businesses struggle to price goods and manage risk. Supply chains would break down, leading to shortages and a worldwide recession. Developing nations, many with dollar-denominated debt, would face exploding repayment costs and potential defaults. Humanitarian crises and political instability would follow, especially in the very countries China is courting. The world could fracture into competing currency blocks, making it more fragmented and dangerous. The cooperative system that's kept major wars at bay for decades could break down. Weaponizing the dollar could destroy the very global order that made America prosperous. We're at a pivotal moment. China's rise and America's risky debate over the dollar are reshaping the world. China's diplomatic win over the EU shows Western leadership is fading, while Beijing builds influence through technology and investment. The West's disunity and America's temptation to weaponize the dollar threaten global stability. The dollar's role is the bedrock of U.S. power. Undermining it would be a historic mistake. The path forward demands renewed unity and purpose from the U.S. and EU. They must align strategies, invest in innovation, and engage the developing world as true partners. The challenges of the 21st century, climate, pandemics, economic stability, require cooperation, not isolation. The choices made now will determine whether we move toward shared prosperity or a fragmented, unstable world. The future depends on wise leadership in Washington, Beijing, and Brussels.